Thank you for the kind introduction. Taro Aso is this. Well, think tank in Australia have achieved a brilliant result, surpassing the global standard and the quality of their research. Among them, AIIA, Australian International Institute of International Affairs, has shown more and more enhanced and rich achievement in the field of politics, diplomacy, economic, and geopolitics. I would like to take a moment to tip my hat and express my respect to. I wish I could have visited here with my friend Shinzo Abe. If we could have spoken here, me for 10 minutes and Abe-san for another 10. How wonderful that would have happened. It was 11 years ago, during the Liberal Democratic Party, the ruling party of Japan, political party, presidential election campaigning. The two of us stood at Akihabara station. It was September 20th, 24. I spoke first, not because I was more popular in Akihabara. Since it was a speech on September 20th, I had to ask the audience this question: do you know what today is? The answer, of course, yes. Aso Taro's birthday. Then I continue to ask, do you know what tomorrow is? I said, yes, tomorrow is Abe-san's birthday. The audience shouted, really? And I said, yes, that's right. Such a scene took place. Those were the old days. At Abe's funeral, I gave a eulogy and concluded by saying, honestly, I expect Abe-san to be the one who would read a eulogy for me. It's heartbreaking. My friend Abe was 14 years younger than me. The order was reversed, and my feeling haven't changed. Japan transformed under Prime Minister Abe. The momentum continues under the Prime Minister Kishida. The defense budget will be raised from 1% of GDP to 2%, on the par with NATO. Also, we have stated that we will have the capability to counter-strike the enemy force. All these were laid out in an important set of defense papers at the end of 2021, expressing Japanese stance. And that's not all. Keeping China in mind, we enhanced our framework for economic security. I shall not go into detail today, but please be aware. Now to the main topic. Geopolitics is a harsh field of study. Especially the Australian knows this better than anyone. The tyranny of distance, indicating the Australia's distance from Britain, was a term used by the historian Geoffrey Blady in 1966, when I was 26. His book was soon translated into Japanese, and I was deeply moved by the idea that distance itself can be oppressive. Distance is something human cannot change. No one can put Australia and place it in the middle of the Atlantic, except maybe a Greek mythology. Factors beyond the human control determine the many things. That's what geopolitics deal with. That's why I said it was a bloody study. Perhaps for Japan, it's a tyranny of proximity. In other words, being too close to China. Historically, I believe that Japan has always faced the challenge of its close geographical relationship with China. China's long-term goal is to dominate up to the second island chain with its naval power. Let's assume for a moment that China indeed managed to establish the dominance up to the second island chain. By then, there's a high probability that Taiwan would essentially become a part of China, mainland China. If Taiwan becomes a part of mainland China, the role of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, especially the U.S. Navy based in Yokosuka, Japan, would be diminished. If the U.S. Navy loses its hold, one can't help but wonder how much power would remain with our self-defense forces. Living in Japan, we face this possibility every day. Today, people, goods, even the money from China are pouring into Japan. Generally speaking, this should be welcomed. However, generalities are not always valid. Among the registered foreigners living in Japan, 1 in 4 is Chinese. Not Taiwan, but mainland Chinese. It's highly likely that 1 in 10 or 12 of these Chinese individuals is a member of the Communist Party of China. In mainland China, 1 in 6 of the working population are party members. In Japan, this ratio might be lower, hence by estimating, or 1 in 10 or 12 maybe. According to the charter, of the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, if there are two other party members near you, you must form a party branch. This is a mandatory duty. Opening Japan to foreigners means, in our case, automatically welcoming large number of Chinese. This, in turn, will enhance the influence of CCP in Japan. I should like our friends in Australia to keep this in mind. Whether they are party member or not, or Chinese, wherever they are in the world, are obliged to provide information they know, if so ordered by their country. Many Japanese companies employ the Chinese people in their research and development departments. Caution is more important now than ever. Thus, because of its proximity to China, I believe Japan faces a series of challenging issues. Yet, despite everything I have mentioned, I am not a pessimist. I strongly believe that in the long marathon against China, democratic countries like ours will eventually prevail. It's not unfounded optimism. Many people wish to live in Australia to enjoy its open culture, rich nature, and spacious lifestyle. Fortunately for Japan, it seems there are many Australians who want to visit my country. Recent data indicate that Japan's popularity is incredibly high. When people want to travel abroad, they first search for places like Paris or London on the internet, checking the restaurant and hotels and so on. According to data, on Australian search question, the top 3 places are Taiwan in Tokyo. You know where it is? Asakusa is located in Tokyo, followed by Kyoto, then Shibuya, again in Tokyo. Shinjuku ranks 4th, Hong Kong, not in Japan, but in China. Then back to Japan with Osaka 6th, Sapporo 7th, and then Taipei, Taiwan. Nozawa Onsen and Hakuba are 9th and 10th. They are the all skiing resorts. This isn't the case with China, where these days companies are cautious about sending their employee due to risk to detainment. Experts and scholars from the think tanks openly state they no longer visit China. They need special mobile phones and can't take their laptops, plus there are always the risk of being detained. In this competition between systems, free and democratic nations like Japan and Australia cannot lose to China. This conviction is the foundation of my optimism. However, This perspective is based on a longer timeline. The challenge is how Japan can remain a strong nation up to that future point without being swayed by the tactics China might employ. It's about whether the Japanese can firmly protect the value we hold dear. This is the crux of the matter. While it is unlikely that Xi Jinping will immediately attempt a military invasion of Taiwan, the possibility of first seizing Kimon and Matsu Island seems more plausible. From mainland, they are so close that you could throw a stone and hit them to islands. In such a scenario, Tokyo, Canberra, and Washington, D.C. must speak in one voice that they shall not tolerate any change in the status quo achieved through forces. If our response is weak, China will likely interpret it as a favorable sign, and it should not be surprising if they then set their sight on Taiwan. If you all take a look at a map of Japan and its surroundings, you will realize how geopolitics can be brutal field. With Russia, China, and sandwiches between them, North Korea, we find ourselves in a neighborhood that few should envy. There are few regions in the world are dangerous and unpredictable. From this, Japan policy's direction becomes clear. There is a limit to what Japan can achieve alone in mitigating risks. We have to collaborate with someone, excluding the United States, with whom we have an all-alliance treaty. The obvious choice is Australia. Firstly, both countries are neighbors lying on the same vertical line. Secondly, both are open democracies. And thirdly, both Japan and Australia consider the US an ally. Thus, US military deterrence in conjunction with Japan and Australia amplifies its effect 2, 3, or even 4 times in the Indo-Pacific. Never before have Japan and Australia needed each other as much as they do now. Our relationships, which once focused on resources trading, has evolved into a robust one, grounded in strategic national interest. Lots of change, primarily driven by China, are bound to happen in this region in the future. However, I believe that if Japan and Australia, and further, these two nations, along with the US and perhaps India, enhance their bond as maritime democracies, we can navigate even the stormiest of the sea with confidence. The two prime ministers from Australia and Japan signed the Japan-Australia Joint Declaration of Security Cooperation in Perth, Australia, last October. More one like into the document, the richer its content appears. To some, like me, it seemed almost like a declaration of an alliance, even if not named as such. Notably, it states that the Australian Defence Force, when operating near Japan, will do so under the protection of our self-defense forces. In the near future, the new UK aircraft carrier strike group, which will also operate under the SDF's protection, will join this framework. With ever strong presence of US forces, Japan has never been in a more reassuring environment. I mentioned earlier that the future of the Indo-Pacific will see many changes, mainly due to China's actions and how the seas ahead may be turbulent. But with the solid Japan-Australian foundation I mentioned, why not move forward with spring in our step? Finally, I should like to propose an ambitious ideas for your consideration, even if it's not feasible for now. How about we expand AUKUS to include Japan, making it Jaukus? We would, of course, have to discuss this with America and the United Kingdom. I must clarify that I'm not speaking on behalf of the Japanese government. On this matter, it's only my own personal opinion. Prime Minister Kishida, Chief Cabinet Secretary Matsuno has no need to address this topic to official capacities due to any remark. It's just an idea from me, Taro Aso. But doesn't it make sense? AUKUS is not only about the nuclear-powered submarines. Australia urgently needs to replace its old submarines. I believe Japan can greatly contribute in this area. Moreover, the symbolic significance of this inclusion is paramount. This is what we commonly refer to as the messaging effect. Actually, if you ask GPT-4, Jaukus translates to something like a cozy or comfortable in Lithuanian. All the more reason to consider the inclusion of Japan. Thank you for your listening and patience. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Heather Smith. I'm the National President of the Australian Institute of International Affairs, and we're honoured to have you all here tonight, so thank you all for coming out on this lovely evening. I would like to acknowledge, of course, our special guest and guest of honour, former Prime Minister of Japan and Vice President Aso. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Amos Livets, our former President of Latvia, who will be addressing the National Press Club tomorrow. I also would like to acknowledge Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator the Honourable Simon Birmingham, and also Senator for Tasmania, Katrina Billick. Thank you very much for coming this evening. And to Your Excellencies, Ambassador Suzuki and Ambassador Karas, thank you. And distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. Well, on behalf of everyone here tonight and on behalf of the AIIA, it is my privilege and pleasure to sincerely thank Vice President Aso for his insightful and challenging remarks on our region and on Japan's relationship with Australia. Ours is a relationship of deep trust, and it is testimony to the warmth between our two countries to have someone of Vice President Aso's status with the depth and breadth of his experience to address us this evening. In this era of strategic competition, it is undeniable that we are facing deliberate attempts to shift the power balance significantly in our region. Both Australia and Japan find themselves at the forefront of this evolving landscape. As nations that share democratic values and a commitment to a rules-based international order, we have a shared responsibility to contribute to regional stability and prosperity. Australia and Japan have recognised that in this complex environment, it's essential to reach out to other like-minded partners in our region. We must build on partnerships that not only strengthen our respective security and economic interests, but also promote regional cooperation and development. In this endeavour, Australia and Japan have much to learn from one another as we do seek to promote a region where nations can continue to cooperate as they see fit, to choose their own destinies free from external coercion. While the AIIA has a broader remit than the Indo-Pacific, the need for regional cooperation is one that we take very seriously. With the generosity of the Japan Foundation, we've initiated a program this year that brings experts from across the region to Japan and Australia to engage in dialogue on issues affecting this region. Of course, mutual learning is relevant to how we manage our bilateral relationship with China as well. As China continues to rise, it is crucial for Australia and Japan to engage with China in a manner that promotes stability, cooperation, and constructive dialogue. But it also applies to managing our respective alliances with the United States. Our alliance with the US has been a cornerstone of both nations' national security policies for many years, and we understand the importance of balancing our alliance commitments with our own national interests. That is a lesson that both our countries have learned and continue to refine. As we contemplate the future of Australia-Japan relations and our roles in the Indo-Pacific, we must remain steadfast in our commitment to deepening our partnership, fostering stronger partnerships with like-minded nations, and engaging with regional actors in a constructive and inclusive manner. The challenges that both our countries face are indeed formidable, but our shared values, resilience, and the wisdom that we can glean from one another will guide us in navigating the complex waters of the Indo-Pacific. Our conference today addressed where Australia stood within a polycrisis, a convergence of threats arising from traditional strategic tension, climate change, inequality, ideological positioning, and geoeconomics. With his extraordinary experience as Foreign Minister, Finance Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and Prime Minister, we have been deeply honoured to have you here today to reflect on the situation that we find ourselves in and really appreciated the way that you framed it, how from the tyranny of distance from Australia to the tyranny of proximity from Japan's perspective. Japan and Australia are indeed important shipmates as we navigate through these issues, and Vice President Aso has left us much to ponder, including that of a Jaukus. So please join me in thanking Vice President Aso for his remarks this evening.